What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Division 2 build video. So the Battle for Brooklyn DLC is right around the corner, and now that there's going to be a level 40 boost, I think we're going to see more new Division players joining the chaos. Having a level 40 boost is going to entice more new players to join because now you can basically skip the campaign and go straight to endgame, which is going to make it a lot easier to get into the game as a new player. So with that being said, in today's video, I'm going to showcase and break down 3 very powerful and viable PvE builds for new players. And with these builds, you new players should have something solid to help you hit the ground running once you reach the end game content. But these builds are designed and better suited for a beginner player because they are very practical and don't require much farming to put together. So you can set any of these up today and start clearing through endgame content very quickly. So if you're one of those players who still struggle with heroic difficulty, or perhaps you just need something more fitting for a solo player, then these builds may serve you well. So guys, thank you so much for being here, and without further ado, let's get into it. This first build harnesses the power of the strongest DPS gear set in the Division 2. Striker's Battlegear is the greatest of all times, like hands down, there's no room for debate. So if you're fairly new to the game or even returning after a long break, the Striker gear set would be your best bet. Striker has so much raw weapon damage to offer, and the pieces are super easy to farm for. Also, the playstyle for this build setup is nice because it's a mid to long range build, so you can keep a safe distance from the enemy if run and gun, isn't your kind of playstyle, right? Now this build also has a decent amount of survivability, so it should hold up well for heroic difficulty content for the most part. So it's great for open world XP farming, control points, and all that other jazz. So for the primary weapon, I'm using the F2000, which is a high-end assault rifle with the talent killer. Killer helps by adding 70% critical hit damage by killing an enemy with a critical hit. This buff lasts for 10 seconds, but every kill will refresh that timer. And for the secondary weapon, I'm using the Eagle Bearer Exotic Assault Rifle. And this was the weapon I was using in the intro gameplay, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. This is a great weapon, but you have tons of other options like the Carbine 7, Police M4, or even the Honey Badger. But honestly, any AR with a decent RPM will work fine. Just pick any AR you prefer and roll the talent killer on it. And for the third weapon attribute, damage to armor or damage to target out of cover helps add more damage. But this is the build, right? So a 4-piece striker set with a Fenris vest rolled with Obliterate and a Grupo bag rolled with Bloodsucker. So Obliterate will increase your weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. And since this can stack up to 20 times, you get up to 20% increased weapon damage added overall. However, just note that only critical hits landed on an enemy will increase your weapon damage, right? So this is why you want to have a decent amount of critical hit chance. So as you can see, mine is at 50%. It caps at 60%. But honestly, 40% is probably the lowest I would go. I wouldn't recommend going any lower than that. And 130% critical hit damage exact. Now for the backpack talent, you have some options here. Like if you would rather have more damage, you can go with Unstoppable Force or Vigilance. Unstoppable might be better though, because it has no downside, unlike Vigilance. But on the other hand, if you want to have more survivability, you can go with Bloodsucker. And with Bloodsucker, for every enemy you kill, you get 10% bonus armor for 10 seconds. The max number of stacks is 10, so at full stacks, your armor bar starts looking pretty crazy. Now, you also get a 13% critical hit damage bonus for having 1 piece of Grupo, and I have Weapon Damage Core, both critical hit chance and damage, and a critical hit damage mod. And for the Fenris vest, you get an extra 10% assault rifle damage from the set bonus, which is basically 10% weapon damage, rolled with armor core and crits. Now for the striker gear set, I have armor rolled on all of the pieces, right? And for the mask and gloves, critical hit damage, then for the knee pads and holster, critical hit chance. So I have a nice balance. So if you're new, gear sets come with bonuses similar to brand sets. So with Striker, I get a 15% weapon handling and rate of fire bonus, as well as the gear set talent, which is the 4th piece bonus, right? So with the Striker's Gamble talent, you're basically getting 65% weapon damage at full stacks, because you get 0.65% weapon damage per shot, and this can stack up to 100 times. But there is a downside, as you can see. You can lose 1 stack per second between 0 and 50, then you lose 2 stacks per second between 50 and 100. But this isn't a big deal because as long as you're in combat and fighting, you can rebuild stacks quickly. Now for the skills, the Ballistic Crusader Shield is extremely viable and great to use because it provides cover while you're mobile. And for the secondary skill, I'm running the Decoy to draw aggro. For the weapon specialization, I went with Gunner for the 10% armor on kill bonus you get from the skill tree, so this incessant passive talent. And for the global modifiers, I'm running Tactical Supremacy for the active. This mod is pretty good because it will actually increase all equipped passive modifier bonuses for a limited time. So you can see here, for 15 seconds, the effects of all your passive modifiers get a 100% increase. So that increase applies to any passive modifiers you have equipped. Now for the passive modifiers, I'm using Critical Momentum. So critical hits have a 40% chance to grant 1% momentum, then Critical Recovery, similar to the previous, but instead of granting momentum, critical hits restore 0.5% of your max armor. And last but not least, Fortified Shield, which increases your skill shield's base health by 100%. This basically makes your ballistic shield a bit more sturdy, so it can take more hits before getting destroyed. Alrighty, this next build is a very simple 4-piece Heartbreaker setup. Heartbreaker is another extremely powerful gear set for a DPS, and the playstyle for this build is basically the same as the previous setup, so you're going to be mid to long range. The Heartstopper talent from the Heartbreaker set is very similar to Striker, and you'll need to build stacks. However, it takes a bit longer to build stacks with Heartbreaker, so this is why I'm using the ACS-12 shotgun as my secondary weapon. The ACS-12 shotgun is a great weapon for building both Striker and Heartbreaker stacks. You can also just build stacks with your AR, but just keep in mind that it will take much longer. So, if you want to get the most amount of damage out with this build, you'll periodically need to build your stacks with the ACS-12 shotgun, then you can switch back to your primary once you have the damage buff. So, for the primary weapon, I'm using the named Kingbreaker high-end assault rifle, which you can get very easily since it's in the general loot pool. But this weapon comes with the perfect flatline talent that amplifies weapon damage by 20% to pulsed enemies. This talent works very well with Heartbreaker, and I'll show you why in just a moment, but for the secondary weapon, I'm using the rock and roll named ACS-12 shotgun, but there's another named ACS-12 called the Lefty, so you can use either of these two if you have them, or you can just farm for a regular ACS-12. For the mask, a Heartbreaker piece with armor, critical hit damage, and a critical hit damage mod. Then a Heartbreaker chest piece with armor, critical hit chance, and another critical hit damage mod. For the holster, a Fenris holster rolled with armor and both crits, and since this is a Fenris brand, I get the 10% assault rifle damage bonus for having one piece, and for the knee pads, a third piece of Heartbreaker with armor and critical hit chance. For the gloves, the final piece of Heartbreaker with armor and critical hit chance. Then for the backpack, a Cheska bag with weapon damage, both critical hit damage and chance, with a critical hit damage mod. And for the talent, I'm using Unstoppable Force to add more weapon damage. So by killing an enemy, you will gain 5% weapon damage, stacking up to 5 times. So after 5 kills, that's 25% weapon damage, and this gets refreshed after every kill. Also, I get an 8% critical hit chance bonus from the Seska brand set. Now, just in case you're new and didn't know, Heartbreaker is basically a pulse-reliant gear set, so you can only build stacks on pulsed enemies. So this is the reason for me using the Kingbreaker, because it comes with perfect flatline. So just like with any other gear set, you get bonuses for having pieces equipped. With Heartbreaker, I get a 15% AR and LMG damage bonus, as well as a 15% weapon handling bonus, along with the Heartstopper talent for having 4 pieces. So with Heartstopper, weapon hits on pulsed enemies add a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1.1% weapon damage to pulsed enemies, stacking up to 50 times. So you're getting a nice damage and defense buff. But since I have the chest piece equipped, max stacks get bumped from 50 to 100, so you're getting twice the amount, right? Now for the weapon specialization, I went with Technician for the linked laser pointer attachment. And what this does is it allows you to pulse an enemy just by pointing your gun at them. This attachment isn't required, but it makes getting Heartbreaker stacks that much easier. Otherwise, you'd have to land headshots in order to pulse enemies. And for the global modifiers, just in case anyone's wondering, the same as the previous build, so tactical supremacy, critical momentum, critical recovery, and fortified shield. For the skills, the Ballistic Crusader shield and decoy, but instead of the decoy, you can also use the Reviver Hive if you're playing solo, just in case you go down. Now, if the Kingbreaker isn't really your cup of tea, I know some players don't like it because of its low RPM, but you can try the F2000 Carbine 7, or if you have, you can even try the Lexington, but just make sure to roll the Flatline talent on it. But keep in mind that the regular Flatline talent gives you 15% amped damage instead of 20 from the perfect Flatline, so that's why I'm using the Kingbreaker. And just in case any of you are wondering, for the stats, 53% critical hit chance and 127% critical hit damage. The critical hit damage is on the lower side, but remember, by having the Heartbreaker vest, you're basically getting over 100% weapon damage because with the Heartbreaker vest, you get the max BPM talent which bumps max stacks from 50 to 100. So this compensates for the lack of critical hit damage. Okay guys, this third build is an SMG build, so the playstyle is going to be more close quarters. This build is ideal for players who prefer a more aggressive style of playing. So you'll enjoy this setup if you're someone who enjoys rushing, or if you're more of a run and gun player. This is a very simple but powerful 4-piece Hunter's Fury build that deals out an insane amount of damage. So you'll need to be close to mid-range while using this build to see great results, and it's ideal for open world XP farming, bounties, public executions, all that jazz. I'm not really a huge fan of SMGs, but I do enjoy playing with this build every now and then. But some downsides are the lack of survivability, and the fact that you need to be up close makes things risky. However, the armor on kill bonuses coming from the gear set and the gunner specialization helps out a bit. You might have noticed that already in this gameplay clip. So I'm actually getting back a fairly decent amount of armor per kill, so there is some survivability. So for the primary weapon, I'm using the M1928, which is basically the Tommy gun. Now, there is another version of this weapon with the drum-shaped magazine that's also pretty decent, but this version, the M1928, has a higher base damage, so I highly recommend using this one instead. Now for the talent, I'm using close and personal, so by killing a target within 7 meters, you get 30% weapon damage for 10 seconds. So this is why I mentioned you'll need to be close range in order to see great results. Now for the secondary weapon, I recommend using a shotgun, but at the moment I'm using the Police UMP. Any of the UMP models are great alternatives, or any of the vectors as well. So for the mask, a Hunter's Fury mask rolled with armor, critical hit damage, and a critical hit damage mod. And for the vest, a Sokolov vest with weapon damage, both critical hit chance and damage, with another critical hit damage mod. And for the talent, I went with Obliterate for the extra 20% increased weapon damage at full stacks. And for the holster, a second piece of Hunter's Fury with armor and critical hit damage, then a third piece of Hunter's Fury, knee pads with armor and critical hit damage. For the gloves, the fourth piece of Hunter's Fury rolled with armor and critical hit chance, then a second piece of Sokolov for the 10% SMG damage and 13% critical hit damage from the brand set bonus. Rolled with armor, both critical hit chance and damage, and a critical hit damage mod. Now I'm using the Wicked talent for extra damage, and with this talent, applying a status effect increases total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. This is another great addition to help with overall weapon damage, but for the skills, the Ballistic Crusader shield, and Banshee Pulse. So with the Banshee Pulse, I'm running this skill mainly to activate the Wicked talent because it will apply the Disorient status effect, which will activate the Wicked talent, so I get that 18% damage buff for 20 seconds. There's no cooldown with the Wicked talent, by the way, and any status effect applied will reset the timer, keeping it active for much longer. So with Hunter's Fury, I get all the bonuses since I have all 4 pieces, so 15% shotgun and SMG damage, as well as 20% armor on kill, plus I get an extra 10% armor on kill from the gunner weapon specialization tree, making it 30%. Then a 50% health on kill bonus, and for the 4th piece bonus, you get the Apex Predator gear set talent. So with this talent, you're basically getting a 20% amplified weapon damage buff for being within 15 meters from an enemy. And for those who didn't know, Amplified damage is multiplicative, unlike increased weapon damage. Also, killing a debuffed enemy with your weapon will disorient other enemies within 5 meters of you. And this will also activate the Wicked talent, but not only that, your weapon damage gets amplified even more by 5% for 10 seconds after the disorient effect, and it can stack up to 5 times. So this is a serious amount of close range damage. Now for the stats, 49% critical hit chance and 154% critical hit damage. And for the global modifiers, the same as the previous 2 builds. So tactical supremacy for the active, then critical momentum, critical recovery, and fortified shield for the passives. This is Prajna. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and if you made it to the end of this video, you are an amazing person. Like always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them for me in the comment section. To all my channel members, thank you so much for being a member of the channel. Your support truly means the world to me. I love you guys, and stay tuned for more exclusive members-only videos. Good luck farming, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you in the next one. Peace out, guys!